Hey everybody, I hope you all are doing well and welcome back. And today we are doing another installment of a video that we started earlier this year where we try to answer those hard-hitting questions. And I'm talking about questions that can change a person's perspective on life, on the world, and dare I say it, change someone's perspective on bourbon. So today we are doing our Is It Better Than Blanton's Tasting video number 2, and we have recently acquired a bottle of this Hancock Presidential Reserve Single Barrel, which is sort of the red-headed royal of the BuffaloTrace bourbon family. But we are going to see how it stacks up against the BuffaloTrace Golden Boy, the one that everyone loves all the time, Blanton's. Now, before we get to it, if you do like these videos, if you like the wanders, if you like the hauls, if you like the reviews, the unbottlings, the unboxings, and really all the amazing stuff we got cooking up for you, and we have tons of amazing stuff cooking up for you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because, one, it does really help the channel to grow, and we are super duper thankful for that. But also, you get notifications when our newest videos come out on Sundays, and sometimes at whatever time in between. All right, now, let's get down to the video. All right, so now, since we already have this Blanton's open, and in fact, it is the same Blanton's from our first Is It Blanton's video, to try to keep continuity and whatnot. Let's get this Hancock Reserve open first and see if we can get a good pop on it before we get our comparison. So, get the plastic off there. See if we can get a pop. A little underwhelming for sure. And get a little of this one out there. Ooh. Let's get a little of that. And then we'll get a little bit of the Blanton's poured out here. See if we can get some of that going there. Ooh, yeah. And to whiskey. Because, honestly, let's face it, you can never really drink too much of it. You can only just drink it too fast. Cheers. All right, now, real quick, while we are letting these two open up a little bit, let's talk about how we're going to do the score on this, and it's pretty straightforward. There are a couple categories. We're going to do ABV, we're going to do price, we're going to do nose, and we're going to do palate and finish. We're going to score them on each of those in comparison, and whichever bottle is better in each of those categories, well, they're going to win that category. And whoever's the most points at the very end, well, that means they're going to win. So let's start with the first and the objective ones, the ABV and price. So first of all, the ABV on this Blanton's is at the pretty standard, let's see here, 46.5 ABV. This one, if you did not watch the previous one, was dumped on 5/3/2022 from Warehouse H. They're all dumped from Warehouse H. Barrel number 1067, Rickhouse 5, and the bottle number for this one is 192. The price that we got for this Blanton's was $79.99 at a local grocery store here in Los Angeles. So that is the Blanton's. Now, for the Hancock Reserve, this one has kind of a bit of a weird ABV on it. It is at 88.9 proof, or I guess that comes out to 44.45%. So it is kind of a strange ABV. And the price that we got this one for was for a few dollars less, which is a great movie, or maybe it's a few dollars more. Don't hate me, Clint Eastwood. But we got it for a little bit less, for $69.99 than the Blanton's. And we got this one in, I think it was Las Vegas, actually. Yeah. So what this means in terms of ABV, Blanton's is going to win with the higher ABV. And of course, ABV isn't the end-all, be-all to having a great whiskey, of course, contrary to what some may think. That'll be tasted by test. But in this case, the ABV is a little bit higher, so the ABV is going to win. Now, as far as price, the Hancock Reserve is going to win because it's a little bit less expensive when you get it at the total wine price of $79.99. When you get it at Costco, you can find it for $47.99 or $46.99, depending on where you're at. That kind of changes the whole dynamic, but we're sticking with the specific bottle. So as far as price at $69.99, we're going to say the Hancock Reserve is going to win that one. Now let's get down to where the rubber meets the road, which is going to be on the nose, on the palate, and on the finish. First, on the Blanton's, let's get a nose here. Oh, you get a very specific bourbon nose from Blanton's. It is warm, it is full-bodied, and it is very sweet. Kind of like fresh maple bar frosting that you get from the donut shop or on top of the maple bars. Wow. But there's not really much ABV on there at all. There's a little bit of rye spice, leather, vanilla, those kinds of things. It's really kind of exactly what I remember on it. All right, now let's give it a nose here on the Hancock on its own. And there is a very, I guess I would call it, obviously it's a very similar smell, but I get much more kind of rye spice on there than I did on the Blanton. It's a little more graininess, still not much ABV. And it doesn't have that kind of like warm, like embracing feeling to it. It feels a little bit more standoffish, like a step parent or something. There's like waxiness, candle wax. Yeah, interesting. It's definitely, there's a family resemblance though. It's just not as warm and embracing as you get out of the Blanton. Now let's compare them side by side. Hancock, Blantons, together. You know, the biggest differentiator between the two is going to be kind of like the sweetness and like robustness and full-bodiedness that you get on the Blantons. But the Blantons does lack sort of like that waxiness. And it seems to replace the waxiness with like the leather and vanilla, kind of sweeter, heavier effervescences. All right, so on the nose, I'm definitely going to have to go, I think, with the Blantons. Sure, Blanton's has the home team advantage. I mean, the whole thing is kind of centered around, is it better than Blanton's? But to be honest, I'm still sort of rooting for the other guy. I'm almost always rooting for the other guy. But, you know, it's still got to be there. It's still got to actually be better. And the Hancock Reserve, well, just doesn't beat out Blanton's on the nose. So for the nose, definitely gonna have Blantons. Now, real quick, before we get to the palate and the finish, let's talk about why I chose this Hancock Reserve and to compare it to Blanton's if it isn't already obvious. And also why it seems like it often gets brought up as an alternative, and we'll actually see here in a sec. But the Hancock Reserve is, it is going to be from the same family as Blanton, so it is Buffalo-Trace. It comes with the same Mashbill, Mashbill number 2, the low rye, so they basically sort of share the same DNA, but you know, that is where it ends. You know, the rest of the things, how it's aged, how it's barreled, where it goes in the warehouse, all those things are going to have a big effect on the final product. But it is easy to see how it could be a logical jump to think that the Hancock Reserve could be a substitute. And it also doesn't hurt that the folks at Total Wine kept saying, oh, this is the same as Blanton's. It is basically Blanton's. And it is a great alternative if you can't find Blanton's. But I think that might come down more to economics, because I feel like Total Wine, they bought a lot of this, thinking it would sell real quick, and are starting to have a hard time to get rid of it. So I feel like they've been bonusing the floor people to get it sold ASAP. All right, so let's move on to the palate and the finish here. And I think this might actually be an area where the Hancock could make up some pretty good ground, because Blanton's, look, it is pretty good, right? It is very good, but it's not perfect, especially at this level. So let's get a taste of the Hancock first, because we went with the Blantons on the nose first. And on the palate, it definitely feels a little more oily. You get a lot more rye spice right up there on the front than you do with the Blantons. A bit of ABV burn, kind of like that, but it really lacks some of that sweetness. It almost replaces it with kind of like a char and like a bitter tea thing going on, which I don't hate. I kind of do like that. In fact, I like this a lot more than I thought I would. So for the finish on the Hancock, I'd say it's actually pretty good. It's got a nice length to it, like a medium length. It's not super duper long. And as it gets farther down that finish path, it actually starts to look a lot more similar to the Blantons. But all around, the Hancock has a pretty decent finish. Not bad. All right, and let's, for the Blantons here. On the palate, definitely more delicate. It has so much more kind of like vanilla and sweet honeysuckle leading that charge. There is a char and ABV. It's definitely there, but it's taking a back seat to that heavy, kind of syrupy sweetness there. It's definitely more vibrant. I think that is a good way to describe it as well. All right, so let's give them a try side by side here. Hancock, Blantons. You know, they both seem pretty similar. But where the Blantons excels over the Hancock is that it feels like kind of the difference between watching the old I Love Lucy reruns in black and white, and then one day starting to see that there are reruns that are in color, and they look completely different. It has a completely different feel to it. The Blantons is more of that I Love Lucy in the full color. And the Hancock is more of the kind of black and white version. Both are good, but they can be appreciated very, very differently. They have very, very different feels to them, even though they are the exact same show. The palette on the Hancock, it seems very similar. It's just more muted in its color and perhaps maybe like a more serious, less sweet, and less jovial version. While the Blantons, on the other hand, it just feels more colorful. It's more embellished and almost like an evolutionary step over the Hancock, even though I think the Blantons actually came first. So on the palate, Blanton's is still going to be the winner in this case. But on the finish is where Hancock really starts to make up some ground. I think that the finish on the Hancock is a little bit more fortified, in the sense that the ABV really starts to show through on the Hancock. It is much, much longer than what you get on the Blantons, and the char is very present, so it definitely makes a strong appearance on the finish in the Hancock, whereas in the Blantons it gets overshadowed by some of the sweetness, and the finish is a little bit shorter. So for the finish, I could see how the Hancock could be advantaged, because it is longer, it is more focused on char and ABV, and if that's something that you really like, then that might be a stronger point for you than over on the Blantons. But that being said, for me, I would still definitely take the shorter, more stronger vibrance that you get with the Blantons than the longer, more narrow, direct finish for the Hancock. So on the finish, it's definitely going to give it to the Blantons, but that is more of a personal choice. All right, so for the final scoring for these two, we have the Hancock Reserve winning on price and falling short on the rest of the categories against the Blantons. But to be fair, some of those categories, it is neck and neck, right? It's very close, like on the nose. But then there's other ones which could be a personal preference. So like the finish for me was a personal preference, even though the Hancock is, I guess, kind of on paper better. And then there are some that, it just can't compete with Blantons like on the palate. So final conclusion, is it better than Blanton's, the Hancock Reserve? Well, no. But to be fair, it probably would be a reasonable substitute if you couldn't find the Blantons at a price that seems fair. Of course, it would not be a replacement, but it could be a decent substitute. So is it better than Blanton's? No. All right, so that's it for our Is It Better Than Blanton's review number 2, Blanton's versus the Hancock Reserve. And I really hope that you enjoyed this video. And in fact, if you like all the videos, if you like the wanders, if you like the hauls, if you like the reviews, the unbottlings, the unboxings, and all the great stuff we got cooking up for you, and we have tons of great stuff cooking up for you, don't forget to like and subscribe, because it does really help the channel to grow, and we are super thankful for that. But also, it's good for your whiskey mojo, and it pleases the whiskey gods. They might bring you some whiskey luck. And also, of course, you get the updates when our newest videos come out every Sunday, and sometimes in between. Now, just remember, if you do find a whiskey that you love, just buy it. Because if you don't, somebody else surely will. And even in this case, it might even be me. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your week. I'm out, and adios.